We're doing a live show for world building essentials and exercises. We're talking about the DMG today. We're going to go through chapter 3. This is the new DMG 2024 rules, even though it's now 2025. Uh, First, I want to thank everybody for the amazing success the channel has had in the last month. Uh, 25% increase in subscriptions, a lot more viewing time, all the great demographics that we love to see as creators. Diving right in, we're going to talk about chapter 3, what they are calling the DM's toolbox. A lot of good stuff here. Uh, Definitely a must read for new DMs. I think that's the biggest strength of the new DMG is that it's actually made not just as a reference, but as a way to teach new DMs many aspects of the game. Uh, it's a hard row to hoe. Uh, it's There's a lot of skill sets that you got to learn. Um, we're just going to dive in. The first section is talking about alignments. If you know me at all, if you've listened to much of anything that I've done on the channel, I don't use alignments as anything more than basic descriptors. And to be honest, I'm not that far off from what the DMG tries to tell you. And that is use it as a way to describe your character after you've already come up with the important aspects. Of course, monster alignments are a little bit different, especially whenever it comes to fiends and angel types and the extremes of the universe. But characters aren't that way. If you want to play an evil character, don't go overboard. You know, play a reasonable, rational evil character. Uh, and there's a lot of room to work with there. Talk to your DM, figure out what you want to do. Some DMs just flat out won't allow evil characters. I think the main thing that they're concerned about is not the basics of evil. It is the extreme craziness of chaotic and evil that players want to bring into the campaign. But you can play a rational character with that kind of alignment and fit in just fine. And I'm not going to dwell anymore into the alignments than that. Uh, I could spend a whole video talking about it. Instead, we're going to move on to something far more important. The second part of the chapter 3, chases. Okay, maybe it's not as important. You got 2 pages here talking about how to run a chase. Uh, to an experienced DM, it might seem intuitive, but there's some good procedural stuff here. There's some ideas. Read it if you're planning on, wanting to conduct this kind of a potential encounter where the characters are either going to be run down by something more powerful than them. Um, but Also, if you think there's a good chance that they're going to be pursuing somebody, maybe they're going after somebody that's significantly weaker than them, and you know that character is going to run from them rather than try to fight. This section on chases, might give you some ideas on how to run that. But really, it's all very, mechanical stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of what this section is. And let's face it, we're playing a game full of math rocks. There's a lot of technical stuff here. Uh, Hello to everybody. Just let me acknowledge our visitors a little bit. Thank you for the comments. Good morning to you too. It's evening here, but I appreciate you viewing. Am I a monk? I am not. I'm somewhere between a wizard and a barbarian, so pretty much a normal, DM type. Uh, and somebody wants to play with my beard. Well, we can talk about that at another time. Just tuning in, my name is Lewis Nichols, and we are talking about the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide, specifically Chapter 3, the DM's Toolkit. The next page is also talking about chases. It has some random charts on complications and such. Page 55. We've talked about backgrounds a lot, haven't we? In our live shows, that's recently pretty much all we've talked about. This section is some basics about how to create a background. And we actually talked about this page before. I think that we need to realize what we're getting into moving to 2024 rules. There's a lot of work there to be done. You will want to create backgrounds. This is a station primarily about world building, and I see this as a function of world building. You very much want to include it whenever you're developing new areas, what unique backgrounds are there. But this gives you the basics. It's pretty much what you would expect. You guys have all looked at backgrounds. You know their components. This is just reviewing those components. Again, the new DMG is geared toward new DMs, not people that are more experienced and can already picked up big aspects quickly and over many, many years. So we're probably going to spend several live streams doing this. I don't want to do a 2-hour live stream for logistic reasons. But we'll see how long we go. We're way less than 10 minutes in, so we got a ways. They have a section on creating a creature. Creating creatures, I mean, we have so much to draw on. We're about to get a monster manual that is just freaking huge. We already have many multiples of books and lots of variants available online. So it's not something that you're really pressed to do. As a world builder, I see it as something that you want to do to add flavor to your unique portion of the world, your campaign area. But it gives you, how you want to juggle ability scores and traits and what spells and how to handle attacks. Many creature traits that you'll find all throughout the monster books. But it has them kind of narrowed down here into I would say brief, but it's a 1-page list of everything from something like steadfast, where you have immunity to the frightened condition, to disintegration attacks. So it's a lot here. It's worth looking at whenever you're planning on doing some world building and adding a creature or two to your game. The next section is about creating magical items. Again, to me, the biggest reason to do this is regionally. Maybe you have a faction and you want to add some enchantment ability to that faction. Maybe a thief with special thieves guild with special thieves tools. It could be a lot of different things, but all these are things that you can do to add uniqueness. And you're going to hear that word a lot, because if you don't want to just run some generic world that, I don't want to call it boring. Everybody adds their own stuff, but if everything's medieval Europe, it can get a little old. And even if it is medieval Europe, moving from region to region, every place had special things about it. And this is a lot about, attunement, how you want to handle that with your new items, power levels. And it leads right in to kind of the third part of the trifecta, creating spells. Again, there's so many spells, but you can maybe have, if you have a certain faction, again, let's go with the Thieves Guild idea. Maybe your arcane tricksters, your spell casting thieves in a given region have a certain way they like doing things. And it can be something simple. I mean, we all know the knock spell is noisy. Maybe it's a higher level knock spell that's a little quieter. Lots and lots of ways to handle things. And this goes through how you want to scale your damage, how you want to scale healing. There's not a lot to the spell area. Whenever you're doing new stuff, whenever you're adding spells, adding items, especially as a new DM, communication is vital. Talk to your players. Let them know you're playing, you're adding stuff, you're experimenting, and set expectations that things might have to change if you've overdone it. If it doesn't work out the way you thought it would, if you find out that you've kind of messed up your own game, you can correct it. You can make corrections before it's an ongoing disaster. Page 60, moving right along. Curses and magical contagions. This is something I don't know how many of you guys use curses and disease. One of my really good videos, or well-performing videos, I don't know how, I think they're all good, but was about A disease. And it got a lot of complaints because people didn't like the idea of something like that being so game affecting. But looking at some of the stuff in this book, in the new DMG, and other ideas online, mine's not any worse than rules written for a lot of this stuff. You can press players and challenge them in other ways. And depending upon what kind of difficulty level you decided on in session 0, you can kill them with a disease. I've done it before. It's a long story, but it did happen. Character caught an illness and eventually died from it. Curses can be as simple as stealing treasure that's connected to a deity or some other powerful being. It can be something minor. It can be, maybe minus a point of strength. It might not be forever. It might be, 60 days. It might be easily beatable. Maybe you go to another temple, a friendly temple, and they can dispel it for you. Maybe you've got a cleric in your group that can dispel it for you. Some curses can be much worse. If you slay or burn down a temple, let's just say, you move into a town, you get into a kerfuffle with the authorities, and in the process, you end up torching the public administration building, which doubles as a temple for the lawbringer, or whatever god of government is in the area. You might get something significant. There are ramifications for dealing with powerful entities. It could be a movement penalty. It could be any number of things. Some points off of your max health until some restitution occurs. Now, maybe you want a rule that it can be beaten with a higher level spell with greater restoration, or maybe even something higher. But you may want a rule that, this was a major temple, this was a major god, it's a big deal. You're going to have to do something, perform a little quest, do some community service. Be careful how you apply stuff like that as a DM. Again, this is part of setting expectations. You probably want to give them some heads up that they're, are you sure you really want to do this? But if they go through with it, especially if they're experienced players, especially if they know your world already, um, and it may be that it's just flat out worth the risk for them, and that's what you want, is for them to make bold decisions, knowing that things could be bad for a while. Uh, there's quite a lot here. A couple of pages, a list of some diseases. Uh, a lot of the time, diseases are just an inconvenience. Sometimes they are deadly. You need to decide your own limits and what you want to do. But I do really believe that even if you're just forcing the cleric to cast a restoration spell, that disease should be part of the game. Especially having disease-prone areas. If you have characters moving through new regions that they're not exposed to, it's going to be something that happens. The next page is talking about character death. We've talked about this kind of thing a few times. It has a lot to do with setting expectations in session 0. Most of my players currently and in the past have wanted to play in campaigns where death is a possibility, where it makes for good, strong, memorable moments many times, and it's a more tactical game. On the other hand, I know there are players out there that just cannot stand the idea that their character might not, always be there for them. So talk it out. Figure out ahead of time what your standards are. In my own game, I do not try to balance encounters to the extreme that character death is likely. There's almost always an exit route. But if it happens, it will happen. And I think that's a good, healthy place to be, as long as your players know. If they choose not to use those exit routes, if they choose to engage something that they should know better, and if they stick around too long, somebody might die. And it's okay. Roll up a new character. There's quite a bit here on scaling lethality, on setting up challenge ratings, on the idea, which is very important, of defeated, not dead. You can capture the PCs sometimes as easily as killing them. It depends upon the monster, but a lot of monsters are smart enough to know that perhaps these PCs, these people that they've just beaten, can be ransomed, and that they might have other uses, possibly sold, and then whatever more powerful being they sell to, they are then ransomed or used in some other way, or maybe just released. But there's a lot of possibilities for how to deal with a defeated party. They have a section on death scenes, which that's something to think about. The problem with falling unconscious at 0 and not getting your final last words. If somebody's got some last words and you're already committed to the series of actions that have happened, let them do it. And as players, if a character does die, or even near death, it should have some effect. I mean, this is part of role playing. Speaking of setting expectations, there could be a sneeze coming up. Very likely. We're warned you. we're probably going to go for about 5 more minutes. Most of my initial viewers have dropped off. There's a couple of you still there hanging out. Thank you for that. What if everybody dies? TPK, total party kill. A lot of ways you can go. The things that they talk about here is they're all imprisoned. You die and then you're raised by somebody else. You basically rescued from death. It also mentions here that everybody just rolls up a new character. Honestly, after TPK, one of the best things to do is probably sit back, relax, take a break, and then discuss as a group what you want to do. And have a few ideas for how to continue things. You can jump forward in time. You can do an escape from hell thing. There's a lot of possibilities. And none of them are right, none of them are wrong. It's what works for your party. We have gone from talking about death and disease to page 64, a one-page, full-page discussion on doors. And they're important. How do you get through a door? There's always a campaign joke of the party's worst enemy is a solid door. Should be able to knock it down, but the high strength guys can't knock it down. It just, bad rolls, bad coincidences, and you're just stuck. Some of the best fun to be had in D&D. It gives you some basic scores, hit points, AC, if you want to beat your way through it. It talks about secret doors. It talks about portcullises too. So once again, you can have your own rules. You can handle this stuff however you want to. But it doesn't hurt to review stuff like this, just so everybody from table to table in different DM games across the internet and across game shops and whatever, at least people are starting from the same basic perspective, right? One thing that's here that I absolutely love is where did it go? Well, it's gone. Yeah, DC to open. And it mentions here somewhere too about the idea of passive strength. A very weak character is occasionally going to run into just a normal freaking door that sticks a little bit, and they're going to have problems with it, and it's going to be hilarious because there's no tricks involved. It's just he's a weak character. And you could play the same thing up with very strong characters that occasionally they do some property damage, but that's kind of a different issue. Let's do one more. Page 65, Dungeons. This goes on for about 3 pages. And it talks a little bit about mapping. It talks about how, basic concepts of the dungeon. And keep in mind, these are D&D dungeons / caves. They don't have to exist for a reason. Sometimes they will. Sometimes they're like legacy dungeons that have just, been there for so long that nobody knows why they're there. But occasionally they have to be cleared out, or the bad guys will move in and infest them. They got a big chart here with dungeon quirks. Contains something that led to the downfall of its creator or inhabitants. Built as a stronghold, but abandoned after it fell to invaders. this is a lot of stuff to set a dungeon mood, a theme, and the general feel of the encounters that you're going to run into while you're there. Uh, it could be built on a volcano. That's one of the options here. So lava is going to be an issue, and who knows, you know, if the PCs are there, that must mean that an eruption is imminent, right? Um, there are ideas here that if you're stuck in a rut or just feel like starting from a slightly different direction to give your next set of encounters a different feel, dive in, roll some dice, see if it inspires something in that head of yours. We all need to get outside of our own boxes from time to time. And I believe that is pretty much it for the dungeons. It talks about work areas, so maybe there's an old forge in there. Maybe there's a magical forge. Shrines, who knows? Maybe you can pick up some healing mid dungeon without having to expend resources. We've all played video games where there's mid dungeon rest spots. They talk about how it might be a crypt or have been refurbished as a crypt, or a crypt that has been refurbished. All right, we're going to call it there. Thank you for joining me. For those of you who stuck with me the whole way, I super appreciate it. You are all the reasons that this channel has done well. Again, my name is Lewis Nichols. You have been watching World Building Essentials and Exercises, and I hope you've thought about hitting the like button. I hope that you've subscribed, and eventually this thing will go live. No, it is live. Eventually, this will be going back up, maybe sometime next week, and I am glad that you all exist. You are important in this world, and I appreciate you being here. Everybody have a great day, and I'm going to look for the off button now. One moment, please. Why is it never... There we go.